Born in 1904 into a working-class family in Bristol, Archibald Leach left home at 15 and joined a troupe of acrobats. He travelled poverty-stricken to New York and then to Hollywood. By the age of 29, he was starring opposite the likes of Mae West, who said something famously raucous to him in 1933.
Why don't you come up sometime, see me? I'm home every evening.
Yeah, but I'm busy every evening.
Busy? So what are you trying to do, insult me?
He was touting for work in the studios in the early 30s, and they were looking for faces, and if there was one thing Cary Grant certainly had, it was a great face. And they started to use him opposite some of their most kind of glamorous leading ladies, so Marlene Dietrich, for instance, in Blonde Venus, and then opposite Mae West in She Done Him Wrong.
Anytime you have a moment to spare, I'll be glad to have you drop in. You're more than welcome.
I heard you. But you ain't kidding me any.
We see an embryo of Cary Grant just sort of emerging like this little fetus thing. It's a work in progress, and this is like the opening paragraph in that particular film.
Grant was a wonderful physical comedian. As a child, he was obsessed with the Keystone Cops, and that, combined with his early training as a gymnast, meant that he liked to move his body in a particularly witty, graceful way. There's an unforgettable moment in Holiday where he does a somersault at the sheer pleasure of being so physically gifted.
But you know me, fellas, when things get tough, when I feel a worry coming on, you know what I do. There, and then the worries are over. Goodbye, you comics.
What he did was he combined all these different facets of star personas that he saw when he arrived in Hollywood. He was a big fan of people like Douglas Fairbanks with his kind of dashing, swashbuckling persona, and there are little hints of that. And also throw in a kind of sense of cheekiness, and his sort of circus background gives little hints of this too. You know, he's able to kind of inject a sense of play into potentially sort of staid or very talky material, and kind of always seems light on his feet.
But it wasn't until the mid-1940s that he really came into his own as the slapstick Prince Charming in screwball comedies. With his entirely made up, by the way, transatlantically lilting, super sardonic, rich playboy voice, he was a genius with farcical banter, most beautifully opposite Katharine Hepburn.
You lied to me.
No, well, I did just
telling me a ridiculous story about a leopard.
A ridiculous story. I have a leopard.
Well, where is the
right
leopard?
In there.
I don't believe you, Susan.
But you have to believe me.
I've been a victim of your unbridled imagination once more. All the way you're talking about.
There's this great exchange of wisecracks and quips. It's a kind of dance that they do, and he had the perfect rhythm, Grant, for those kind of films that required a boom, kind of cha-cha-cha rhythm to it.
It's almost like an extension of his physical dexterity and his agility, that he should be so agile with his tongue.
Susan, I don't like leopards.
Just think of him as being a house cat, David.
Well, I don't like cats either.
Stand still, David. Don't be nervous.
Oh, make him stand still.
Off-screen, there were rumours about his sexuality. On-screen, he always managed to transmit a deep affinity with each of his leading ladies. He always made you feel that he wanted her company as much as her body. That's what made him so sexy. And women came onto him wildly. He was the supreme object of desire.
There's a sense in which his female leads are kind of like playmates for him. Not in a, you know, kind of Playboy bunny sense, but in a sort of sense that they kind of like slightly gently mock each other. And the women mock his reserve, and he mocks their over-talkiness or whatever, or their kind of over-exuberance. And out of this, these kind of great chemistries are born.
Just look at the good girl, Ingrid Bergman, virtually ravish him in this scene in Notorious.
I'll cook.
I thought you didn't like to cook.
No, I don't like to cook. But I have a chicken in the icebox, and you're eating it.
What about all the washing up afterwards?
We'll eat it with our fingers.
Don't we need any plates?
Yes. One for you and one for me.
Oh, get in line, Ingrid. Even stiff old Audrey Hepburn came over all the bitterness in Charade.
How about once more around the park?
How about getting out of here? Come on, child, out.
Won't you come in for a minute?
No, I won't.
I don't bite, you know. Unless it's called for.
How would you like a spanking?
How'd you like a punch in the nose?
If you compare him to Clark Gable, Gable is a man, he was the leading man who wanted to rip off your clothes and drag you off to bed. Cary Grant was the leading man that wanted to stay up all night and talk to you.
But it was Alfred Hitchcock who really exploited the fact that Cary Grant looks like a guy who could do whatever he wants. So droll, so urban, so sophisticated. Might he be a bad guy too? What a terrifying prospect.
He went that way. I think he got off.
All aboard! Thank you.
It's quite all right.
7 parking tickets.
Oh.
I think it's terribly interesting that Hitchcock, who didn't have a lot of use for actors except that they were a necessary evil, said Cary Grant was the only actor I ever loved. Everyone agrees that pretty much that Cary Grant is one of the greatest, if not the greatest film star of all time. But I think some people undervalue what a good actor he was.
He did not really do much for the craft of acting in terms of innovation. However, what he did was he created something more than an actor. He created Cary Grant, which is a man that people still aspire to today.
There's no doubt he was a complicated man. He binged on hallucinogenics. He married 5 times and had his first child in his 60s. At 62, he retired, 20 years before his death. Perhaps it just got too hard being Cary Grant, because everybody wanted to be him, from President Kennedy to Tony Curtis. Even Cary Grant said he wanted to be Cary Grant.